We are back with you live on another Johnny Torch live broadcast. Yes, broadcast number 260. And we bring you Torch News Roundup number 294. Wow, getting up there. Can you believe it's been like 3 months since we've had an official Torch News Roundup? Gosh, I've been slacking. But actually, we've had a couple of videos. I put out a couple of short videos, even though they weren't Torch News Roundups. It was more of reviews of the Fantastic Four trailer and so forth. We didn't call those Torch News Roundups, but whatever. A rose by any other name, I suppose. All right, so welcome in. We'll try to enjoy a luxurious afternoon here in the middle of the day on a Monday. Hectic weekend for me. I had a lot to do, and of course, my birthday was a couple of days ago on Thursday. So happy birthday to me. And just really busy and haven't been able to do all the videos and things that I want to do. I got to do that Cobra Kai finale video review. I want to get that up pretty soon. Of course, now Daredevil Born Again is coming out. I believe tomorrow, isn't it tomorrow? So we're going to try to get all those things, get all our ducks in order, and start getting in a more regular schedule. Of course, if you haven't already, and I don't see why you haven't, you could check out the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon comics. I've been working diligently on the book issue number 13, lucky number 13, and it's coming along nicely. Finally, I've had so much work. It's a very complex project. It's it had to be re-inked, and there still is maybe 2 or 3 pages that need a little more touching up, so to speak. But I have gone to predominantly coloring now, and it's coming along very well, and it's coming along a lot quicker now. And I foresee that, unfortunately, these books, I was trying to get them out 6 months an issue. Nowadays, it seems to be like a year an issue, and that's not really my prime target. But unfortunately, it seems like the next book is going to come out in May, which is when the last one came out. So apparently, you could probably circle May on your calendar, or sometime in May. I'm guessing it's going to be out. And I've got some really cool images that I'm going to be showing. We're going to hold off on them on YouTube right now for the time being until I want to make sure I have a handful of images that are good. What really excites me about showing some of these images on YouTube is not so much just putting them up on screen for your perusal, as much as making a video. I want to make a another commercial, another ad, another trailer, so to speak. And this one, I kind of feel what I'm going to do for the trailer. The last story we did, the Man of Our Times, didn't really lend itself as well to a trailer. I'm still trying to think of what I would do for that, because the problem with that story was it was a mystery, and I didn't really want to show too much of it to sort of give away the mystery. I mean, I suppose there's a way you could do it to try to build up the mystery and not, sort of lay all your cards out on the table. It was too difficult, so that was why that one didn't get a trailer. We did trailers for the Death of Bullets Bourbon arc, the Family Jewels arc. So you can find those on my channel. Unfortunately, again, I don't have the music ready here. I never am so prepared where I have everything ready where I need it, and I can't find what I did with the music. And in order to find that, I'll have to go back to the source, and I've got to dig out. Actually, I see it right there on the shelf. That's where it was. But I was in a hurry today to talk to you guys because it's been so long. So let's cut to the chase now. But again, to finish that thought, Bullets Bourbon 13 should be coming out in a couple of months. Check out our link in the description below. You can check out our website. You'll see character bios, some story synopses. We've got the free preview page, which I've been meaning to update, but again, I've been kind of reluctant to spoil the mystery, so to speak, of the last story arc. I want to have it be something that you're not going to have it completely spelled out to you. As a matter of fact, I kind of felt bad putting the promo image of the next cover of the next issue at the back of issue 11, because if somebody has got like itchy fingers and thumbs through it without reading the story first, you might even get the idea before you read the story of what's going to happen. So again, it is what it is. Once a movie comes out or a show comes out or a comic comes out, you can't really, hold back the information for long. I mean, it's like The Simpsons when Homer Simpson comes out and he basically spoils the end of The Empire Strikes Back for everyone. It's kind of going to get out there. So, I mean, it is what it is. All right. So here we are, seated high atop stately torch tower, looking down upon the fair metropolis below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you click the bell for notifications. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, where I spend entirely too much time and get into all manner of trouble. And hopefully, it'll pay off someday. I'm getting a little bit more. I'm kind of learning how to play the algorithm a little bit better, but it's the same thing as YouTube. You know, Trying to play the algorithm where you can get paid or where you can really show up on search engines, it's like fighting a losing battle. It's like bailing out the Titanic. And I don't know if I'll ever get there, but such is life. All right. First up, a very sad story. This. Um, Let me see. I'm out of practice here on how to get the images up. I always have to relearn this because I take so long between videos. All right. Sadly, we lost one of our great actors in in film history. I think I'll go so far as to say, which was Gene Hackman, passed on this past week. The news broke on my birthday, as a matter of fact, but I think, according to the news, he had been dead for, I think, at least 10 days when he was discovered, along with his wife, also dead, and one of their dogs also dead. Originally, it was kind of reported as just no shenanigans involved, no mysterious surroundings of the death, but and it led me to believe, and I think many, with the first description of the scene, was that perhaps it was a carbon monoxide leak, a gas leak, something like that. That's happened, unfortunately, too often. I think Weird Al's parents died from a carbon monoxide leak. There was, I think, a famous tennis player also died that way several years ago. So I mean, we kind of just thought, oh well, that's sad. Particularly Gene Hackman, 95 years young. He seemed to be in the limited photos that were released of him. He seemed to be healthy and good spirits, and you just figured that his passing would be um, uneventful. But unfortunately, this is sort of shaping up to be some kind of a mystery. Um, they say in the more recent reports that carbon monoxide wasn't the cause of death. Um, Pills were seen on the ground uh, at the scene of the deaths. One dog was locked in a kennel or a closet or something. The other dogs were not, making it seem like perhaps some foul play was involved. I don't know. I mean, I'm not really here to speculate. We're just here to like pay homage to the man. But it is sad that there is some kind of strange circumstances surrounding his passing when, again, he was known for being one of the greats in film history, and to have it sort of tainted of the story not being so much on that, but as on the strange circumstances of his passing is sad. Of course, for me, it's always going to be Lex Luthor. That's my favorite Gene Hackman role. That's my favorite Gene Hackman film. In all honesty, I'm not a big movie goer. I mean, I don't watch too many of the older movies. Particularly, I'm not a fan of the '70s movies until sort of the big blockbuster came with Star Wars, Superman, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I've never seen The French Connection. I probably should. He's also done many other very popular films like Hoosiers and what was that one? Crimson Tide. I think that was also another popular one. So, I mean, I really should sit down and try to see some more of his films. But for me, of course, my eulogy is going to be that he was the he was the ultimate Lex Luthor. I mean, we've had some good Lex Luthor actors. He was the best. I mean, he lent a panache, a style, a a playful humor to Lex Luthor. I think the depictions they have of him nowadays very bland, very I think it comes back to the John Byrne reinterpretation of him as like a businessman and so forth. I mean, this Lex Luthor, Hackman's Lex Luthor was something of a businessman. He was sort of an underground businessman. And you know, it was a different take on the character where my favorite version of Luthor is where he's some kind of a mad scientist. And you know, they actually brought that back with Superman 4. And again, that was one of the high points of Superman 4 to me was that they actually got Gene Hackman back to do this as a lark, I'm sure, because he didn't have to do it. Let's put it that way. The famous story, of course, going back to the beginning, they wanted him for Superman because, of course, he was a hot commodity in the 70s. He just won the actor Oscar. And he was kind of ambivalent about doing the film. He didn't want to have the bald cap on for the whole movie. And so Donner and Mankiewicz kind of wrote around that by saying, okay, well, you'll have the different wigs on during the course of the films, Superman and Superman 2, which were being shot concurrently. But we'll just have you remove the wig for the end of the film. And in Superman 2, obviously being in jail, he can't have the wig. So you'll have two or three scenes with the bald cap. And another funny story, of course, that Hackman wanted to keep the mustache because he had a mustache in some of his roles in the 70s. And it was a source of real argument between he and Donner. And Donner, who had a mustache as well at the time, basically agreed to shave his mustache if Hackman would shave his mustache for the role. So Hackman sort of grumbled, but acquiesced to the request and had his mustache shaved. And then came back to Dick Donner and said, "Okay, well, it's your turn now. Get in the chair and get that mustache shaved." And so Donner basically took the mustache and peeled it off. It was a prop mustache. It was a fake. And Hackman took it in good spirits, and the two became very, very good friends. Um, when Donner was fired, of course, off of Superman 2, he wasn't allowed, he wasn't brought back to finish Superman 2, let's put it that way. And they needed Hackman back for reshoots. Hackman refused out of his loyalty to Donner, and you know, it was really sad because they needed him to finish up Superman 2. That some of that body double extra stuff that they had to employ with the bad voiceover actor. It really kind of sunk a lot of the end of Superman 2. That ending in the fortress in the original cut. It's sad that a lot of that was I don't say ruined, but I mean a lot of that was sort of like it paled in comparison to what he could have done had he come back for the role. Now, of course, as I said, he came back to the role for Superman 4. Superman 4, of course, not many people's favorite movie. I mean, I am probably a bigger fan of Superman 4 than anybody else. Let's put it that way. A flawed film to be sure, but he came back and he gave it his all. And again, it was the glint in the eye, the smirk, the way he carried himself. He was just the perfect foil to Christopher Reeve. I can't see anybody else playing Lex Luthor opposite Christopher Reeve the way he did. And again, he didn't wear the skin cap, the bald cap, and it kind of felt like in some ways that, they were kind of trying to just, he didn't have the impetus of a Dick Donner behind him to transcend the role. So unfortunately, we didn't have the gimmick with the wigs. We didn't have the skin cap on when he was in prison. But again, he did bring his all to the role in Superman 4. He did not feel like he was phoning it in any way. And again, it sort of brought back to the original comics the concept of Luthor is a mad scientist and he creates Nuclear Man. And of course, the tie to the original films where he's sort of just a, I don't want to say businessman because he's already a criminal. He can't really go out there and do business, but he's sort of a megalomaniac where he's like trying to take over land and so forth. And then that kind of was tied in as well to the script of Superman 4. But again, just perfect casting. And I honestly loved Hackman doing comedy. Another of my favorite roles, probably my second favorite role, was him in Young Frankenstein when he played the blind man. And I understand he actually like really asked for that role seriously from Mel Brooks because he really wanted to know if he could play comedy. And he was so great at comedy. He did so good in that brief scene, and everybody I think always goes back to that as being one of the highlights of that film. And that's that kind of panache that he had with Luthor. He made him a charming villain. And I prefer Luthor that way. He was still dangerous. He was still deadly as a viper. I mean, he killed people and attempted to kill people probably a greater body count he was going for than the Joker. And the Joker is probably known as, DC Comics' biggest psycho killer. And Luthor is basically trying to kill all of California, to say nothing of New Jersey. He killed the detective in the uh, subway station there with a gleam in his eye. It's just, we don't see this kind of villain, a comedic and yet sinister villain. I've always said that's what we need the Joker to be, something like that. Not to say that Hackman was playing something as broad as the Joker, but I mean, everything is either really ultra serious or too cartoony, too camp. Hackman's Luthor was right in the middle of that. He had the style and the flair, but he didn't overplay that. And at the same time, he was sinister. You really didn't trust him to not kill anybody that crossed him. I mean, he was a very dangerous person. And again, I admired Gene Hackman for doing this part when he probably didn't need it at that point in his career. He was great at playing the sort of everyman. He wasn't one of the pretty boys of Hollywood at the time, and he wasn't solely a character actor, which is what they kind of call the guys that are not very attractive. But he was something in the middle. He was an everyman, and he sort of played the everyman really well. Um, of course, you did a lot of westerns, Unforgiven, Quick and the Dead for Sam Raimi. Uh, Again, for me, it always goes back to Lex Luthor, and I'm just really, really sad that it, had to be this way. That his um his death has like sparked this kind of mysterious surroundings. But again, rest in peace, Gene Hackman. Thank you for bringing your considerable talents to the role of Lex Luthor, a childhood favorite of mine. And again, if you haven't found it, I should probably put a link to it somewhere. But the list of top 10 favorite villains, I have them on there really high up. If you can find that list, top 10 villains. I did a video probably about 5 years ago, and that was showing just back then how much his performance as Lex Luthor meant to me. And again, I'm eternally grateful. Especially, again, I kind of don't want to make it about me, but his Lex Luthor was a big influence on my character, Carrot Top. He's like Hook. He's like, Hook and Smee. It's Luthor and Otis. And that's what Carrot Top and Pickle Puss was for me. It was a take on those familial partnerships. And also sadly, Valerie Perrine is the only cast member, apart from Mark McClure, who of course is significantly younger than most of these other actors who have passed. But she's still with us, fortunately. I know she's suffering from Parkinson's pretty badly, and she said some nice things on Twitter about Hackman and how that was her Lex. And so a very sad day for Superman fans and film fans in general. Rest in peace, Gene Hackman. Thank you for bringing Lex Luthor to life with the flair and the skill that only you could provide, my man. And let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what you think about Gene Hackman's career, his great career, storied career. What is your favorite roles he portrayed? Just a really brutal year this past year, losing James Earl Jones. A lot of our favorite childhood icons have been leaving, unfortunately, at a very steady rate. But again, such is life. And let's move on, shall we, to another subject, one that let's see has come out just recently. This broke on Twitter the other day. The Avengers Doomsday leaks. Now, as far as I know, this is Doomsday. I don't think this is Secret Wars. We get our first look at Victor Von Doom here. I have a lot of thoughts about this, but it's very difficult to process them because it's very difficult from these images to know what they're trying to do. Now, I'm pretty sure they're not going to play Doom for comedy, even though Robert Downey Jr. is going to be playing Doom, because this seems to be very serious. This seems to be very earnest. And I don't think they're going to play Doom for comedy, but at the same time, you think that they're going to have his mask off like 50 times per film, per the two films I think he's in, both per film. I don't know if they're going to do that though from these pictures, because it looks like if they are going to play him this somber, this serious, I don't think you whip the mask off every 5 minutes. So this is like kind of confusing to me what they're going for. This is a very medieval setting. A lot of people are taking this as the truth. You know what I mean? This could be a brilliant forgery. That remains to be seen. Let's just go through some of these images here. All right. This is apparently Doom holding court in Latveria. It's tough to see exactly what's going on here as well. Some have said that's obviously Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange, a villainous Doctor Strange. I don't know why they would go back to that, seeing as how we already had a villainous Doctor Strange in Multiverse of Madness. But I guess this is another universe. There's been suggestions perhaps that Sue Storm and Doom's child. I don't know. I mean, I think Valeria was his daughter in one timeline or something, but this looks like a boy. I could be mistaken. Some other guy here looks like he's about to be putting his head on the block. Is that supposed to be Black Widow behind him? I can't tell if they're going for a Florence Pugh or maybe Scarlett Johansson there. I don't know. But again, very interesting if these do in fact turn out to be the genuine article. This scene of Star-Lord and Vision, this is White Vision, where apparently Vision is going to come back in his own show at some point. And I guess he's going to find his way to Star-Lord. Again, I don't know. I guess this is how they're all going to meet up. Very interesting. All right, let's take a look at something that I don't know about this. Star Lord apparently meets up with the Young Avengers, and the Young Avengers here, and Wong, of course, um, looks like it's Ms. Marvel, Kate Bishop, Cassie Lang, and what are these other two kids? I guess they're the children of the Scarlet Witch. I'm not sure, but I think that's what it is, and they're in some kind of what looks to be an intergalactic dive. I don't know. Hmm. Very Star Wars esque kind of, and there's some kind of X-Men character here. I don't know who he is, but that's very interesting. These are all the ones I could find anyway. Maybe there's more out there. This is apparently a recast T'Challa, or at the very least, it's a recast Black Panther from this multiverse. I think they said the actor. I don't know who the actor's name is. That's apparently being suggested for this. Like I've said before, I think the best thing you could do is recast. I don't know if I said this in my Captain America uh, Brave New World review, but basically, the thing you should do in these films is just recast the characters that are on their way out and keep the original Avengers going, the original characters. We want Steve Rogers. We want T'Challa. We want, you know, Tony Stark. You don't have to kill characters in order to move on with, you know, the characters. It's like the characters deserve to live on. They've lived on much longer than most of us have been alive. It's basically the James Bond way of doing it, where if an actor is done with a role, you give it to somebody else because James Bond is bigger than Sean Connery, and Roger Moore. This here is the biggest problem one for me. They're bringing back I don't know what was his name, Scar. I guess they introduced in She-Hulk. They're bringing back She-Hulk. They're bringing back the Smart Hulk, I think, which is something else that I didn't like. I didn't care for. I don't have a problem so much with them bringing back She-Hulk. I think the problem is that the She-Hulk series was horrible. By pretty much everybody's estimations, it was horrible. Now, I don't think that means that they shouldn't give the She-Hulk another chance as a character. I've always said the writing is what lets the character down. I mean, the writing for She-Hulk wasn't good. That doesn't mean that we should never see the character again. So I don't mind you putting her into an Avengers film. In fact, I think you should put her in an Avengers film, but they have to have significantly improved the writing from the show. The show basically ruined whatever vestiges of the Hulk were left. I mean, we still had Smart Hulk, which I don't know what they're going to do to regress him back. He should have been in Brave New World fighting the Red Hulk. But again, there was probably some kind of commitments that couldn't be broken, that Universal would get paid and so on and so forth if so much Hulk content was in the film. Again, Scar and all that stuff. I don't like World War Hulk. I never liked when Hulk goes around with other green skinned people. I know they had that when I was a kid. It was actually a bit before my time, like in the 70s with Jarella, I believe was her name. It was like a pretty green girl, and he was like king of the Hulk people. Never liked it. I didn't like it. And then of course Jarella was killed, and sort of like, I mean, unlike Gwen Stacy, it was intended to be like Gwen Stacy, where I guess she was sort of his true love, and then she died. In that case, I think they were going to actually bring her back. I think it was Len Wein who did those stories. I can't remember, and I think he was planning on bringing her back, but he had left the title, and then all kinds of heck broke loose with the Hulk, turned into all different things under um, what's his name? Oh, I can't remember the guy's name because I don't like what he did with the Hulk. That's probably why I blanked his name out of my mind. But when they started doing the Gray Hulk and the Joe Fixit and all this and all that. Just didn't like it, and at that point, it was like there was really no point in going back. As far as I know, Jarella is still dead, but again, the Hulk functions best, and I don't think you get an argument with this with everybody. His prime version is Savage Hulk, Rage Hulk, Smash Hulk, or Hulk Smash if you prefer. That's that's the Hulk everybody wants to see, and that was my primary reason for going to see Brave New World. And again, you can watch my review of that to get in details, but there's so much rich history for the Hulk that doesn't even get into the mid 80s. That doesn't get into Smart Hulk and Banner's brain and Hulk's body and Gray Hulk and Joe Fixit. That's when stuff really went off the rails because they had done 15, 20 years of Hulk smash and they didn't know what else to do. And so they kind of like were experimenting with different things. I don't blame them. All right, you want to mess around and do different things because you've got an ongoing strip and you have to come up with something new every month. What's the book going to be this month? Well, Hulk smashes again. All right, you want to do something different, that's fine. But he needs to be brought back periodically to the default setting. And Hulk is the only character where they don't bring him back to the default setting often enough. I mean, they've done it maybe a couple of times, but every time I've ever seen Hulk projects, it's well, he's Gray Hulk, he's Joe Fixit, he's this, he's that. Hulk should be the default Rage Hulk. And the spirit of the story, it was never about other green monsters and him living amongst the folk in Greenland. In Greenland, it was always about Banner on the run. He is trying to get rid of this curse that he's under, but the curse actually has a good side because without the Hulk, he's one of Earth's mightiest heroes. And so he does have a purpose, but he's ruining Banner's life because Banner can't be with Betty, and Ross is always going to try to capture him and so forth. And that's the outgrowth of that storyline. And that storyline was never particularly resolved well. And they put a like a sort of a band-aid over the plot with the Brave New World, sort of tying up some of those loose ends, but again, doing it without the Hulk. And now, if this is what their plan is and what they're going to do with the Hulk, I'm just going to be more disappointed. Now, I was happy that they did what they did in Ragnarok. In fact, I think this is the reason why I like Ragnarok. Because as a Thor movie, it's really not that great. It's not special. It's okay. It's a good Thor movie. But they killed off all the Thor side characters and they pushed him into that comedy realm that I think that when they did Love and Thunder and they did Endgame and this and that, that was they took what started in Ragnarok and ruined it and pushed it way too far. But in this case, in Ragnarok, Hulk finally actually progressed. We got to see him speak somewhat in Hulk ease because in the Incredible Hulk, he just says a couple of lines. He should be saying simple sentences, but he doesn't get that far, and they just didn't use him in that capacity at that point. Now, flash forward a few years after Age of Ultron and they did Ragnarok, they finally started bringing some of that out. And Banner is still sort of beholden to the Beast, but now the Beast is not just an anger monster. He's able to function and so on and so forth, like he did in the comics. That's what I've always wanted to see is a Hulk from the comics. And we've never really had that, at least for very long. We've gotten portions of it. Some of the Incredible Hulk movie was good and very representative of the comic Hulk. Some of Ragnarok was really good and representative of the comic Hulk. But we never really got like that full package. And I feel like at this point with this, if this is our next Hulk project, we're not going to get it here either. You know, so that's disappointing. All right. Uh well, let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited about these images? Does this make you feel like this is going to be good? Is this going to be worthwhile? I don't know. I am cautiously optimistic, but I don't feel very optimistic about the chances of the Hulk reverting back to something that I want to see. Maybe once they get through the storyline, he'll go back to being a Rage Hulk. But I think honestly, the die was cast on that. What, 2015? I don't know. At a certain point, they just, I don't know. They just dropped that entirely. All right, so our next story here, we'll do this one briefly. The Lanterns TV show. They just brought out an image for the TV show. And thinking of this now, I should have looked up the names of these two actors. But again, I did next to no homework here today. I just snapped on the camera and did this. But so we got the two main actors now for Lanterns. It's John Stewart and Hal Jordan. And I think the idea is supposed to be that Hal Jordan is sort of the uh, veteran cop. I don't know if he's like weeks from retirement, but he's taking a younger cop, space cop, under his wing in John Stewart, not Pocahontas. And so the idea here is that it's going to be an Earthbound detective show, a detective mystery or something. And if yes, you zoom in super close, you can see the lantern ring on at least Hal's finger. I'm not sure about John Stewart's. But again, this image broke, and it was very underwhelming, to say the least. Nobody really, I mean, you've got people who are going to simp for whatever is out. I mean, this is the greatest I've ever seen in my life. You have the other side who's going to crap on everything, the birthday party clowns who are like, no, don't you know this is member berries and this is jangling the keys? And you can't win either way, no matter which way you look at it. Either there's going to be member berries and jangling the keys, and one side of the aisle is going to be upset, or you're going to have they didn't even try. This looks horrible. That's the other side of the aisle. I come down on the middle on this. I mean, I don't mind the actors. I don't mind if they're going to do a earthbound story at first. One of the things I said online when I seen this was you kind of have to balance, because what happens is like what happened with Arrow. Now forget about everything that came after. Just think about the first season of Arrow. Arrow originally was a guy in a hood with dark makeup smeared over his eyes with the bow and arrow, and he wasn't even called Green Arrow, and he wasn't even called Arrow, and he was basically called the Hood for the first two seasons. They need to get brave, the DC brand, because for some reason, whenever they're doing television, they're not very brave. What they do is they start off at the ground floor saying nobody's gonna like this, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna just put in a little Easter egg here and a little Easter egg there, and fans will know. That's what that means. Oh, I know that name. Oh, this is something that had to do in the comics like about 50 years ago. Things like that. Now, what they should do is grab the bull by the horns and say, this is Green Lantern. This is the Lantern Corps. This is what we're going to do. If you don't understand it, go read the comics or find somebody who knows the comics to explain it to you, or pay attention. In this case, they're doing it the other way. They're doing, well, these are guys that are detectives, and that'll be easy for the audience to understand. It's palatable. Like I said, we're playing with the tropes of the veteran cop and the up and coming cop, and they're going to do a mystery, and it's going to be something like you see on, I don't know, I don't watch a lot of television, just like I don't watch a lot of movies. So much crap out, I don't really get interested in that kind of stuff. But I guess these are like a dime a gross on streaming or on uh like, yeah, like network television. you know you turn on any Fox channel or something like that, and you'll probably see a show that's like this. We've read the synopsis, I think, before, where it's about a murder in a like a midtown. I think both guys are going to fall in love. One of them with a married woman. I don't know. Just suffice to say that this is not really doing anything for my enthusiasm. It's not exciting. Hal particularly looks like he's fallen on some very hard times. Now they're going to have to explain that, because if he's going to walk around looking like that, eh, I don't know. Now I've got nothing against the actor, and I don't really have anything against them casting him older. But the problem is, you can see very easily what they're doing here is they're going to make John Stewart the Lantern for the Justice League. Whenever they do a Justice League movie, and I think James Gunn said something the past week along the lines of, yeah, we're going to do our own Endgame type event within 6 years. Now, 6 years is a pretty short time considering we haven't introduced Wonder Woman, The Flash, or Aquaman, haven't introduced Martian Manhunter, haven't introduced Hawkman, haven't introduced the Atom. I mean, we've got a lot of ground to cover. And, you don't need them all introduced before you do a Justice League film. But when they do the Justice League film, I don't think they're going to put 60-year-old Hal Jordan standing next to 26-year-old Superman. It's not going to look good. And it's the same thing that we had the problem with Batman v Superman, where Bruce Wayne is like 45 years old and Superman is like 30. You don't want to put 15 years between them. You know what I mean? These guys are supposed to be contemporaries. And they're going to make John Stewart the contemporary. Now, I got nothing against John Stewart. I've said all my life, all the things all the videos I've done, I say the same thing with John Stewart. John Stewart is a good character, but he's a straight man in need of a comedian. He always works better when you pair him up with somebody. In the Justice League cartoon, it was Hawkgirl, or sometimes you split him off with the Flash, or in this case, when he's going to be with Hal. He's not a very compelling character by himself. And this is nothing against John Stewart fans, but Hal is the premier Lantern. He is the one that you're supposed to put in the front and center. He's he's the jockey. He's the guy that's going to go in there and get the job done. Uh, John is more the military man. He's gonna step back. He's gonna think about what's going on, and he's gonna focus on it. That was my impression of them anyway. And I think what they have to do is find a way to try to make Hal be the focal point. Now, another thing I said online was that I think a lot of people are going to become very nostalgic for the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie from, what was it, 2010, 2011, something like that. Because you see that happening already with the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four trailer comes out, and everybody suddenly they're very open to the previous Fantastic Four films, and they're very nostalgic, and they're, oh wow, we had it so good with Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis, and the what was his name? Griffin, Griffith, Grufford. Anyways, but they had a pretty good cast. They had a pretty good couple of movies, and at the time, everybody lambasted it and acted like it was terrible. I'm the only one, I feel like, in this universe that can appreciate the good for the good and admit the wrong when they do wrong. Were the first two Fantastic Four movies, the Tim Story ones, in other words, were they perfect? No, not by any means. The first movie was very good. I thought it was very good, and the role for Doom was the main issue. The second one, Galactus was a cloud, and I think they did some kind of some humor that was kind of pushing it. They tried to make it more of a family oriented film than a galaxy wide epic. But Silver Surfer was good. He came off very well, and so I mean, I can appreciate the good with the bad. Other people can't do that. I mean, most people can't do that for some reason. I still say, for one of my favorite films, top 10, is Batman Forever. Not a perfect film. First, I'll be the first in line to admit that. But what it got very right. Green Lantern was a very flawed film. I always go back to, I think Hector Hammond was the worst possible antagonist for a comic book film ever. Ever. It was basically a guy that couldn't pick his head up off the chair and squeaked and shrieked. It was just horrible. But I don't think the rest of that film was so bad that they couldn't. And I think the Parallax plot was good. The rest of that film wasn't so bad that they couldn't salvage a sequel. Mark Strong was perfect as Sinestro. Perfect. And everybody would have killed to see a yellow core Sinestro movie with yellow core going up against the Green Lantern core. That would have killed. All they had to do was just write Hal a little bit better. And of course, the editing, that was probably one of the worst edited movies I've ever seen. And the editing was horrible there, which is strange since I think the editor was the guy that worked on Superman the movie, right? Wasn't he the editor for that film? But anyways, I mean, there's some good things there. I mean, they tried to. I said this online as well. They tried to Tony Stark eyes Hal Jordan, and that was the problem that they did. They brought in Ryan Reynolds to sort of be a jokey kind of, slapstickian character like Tony Stark was. You know, that's not exactly what Hal Jordan was, so it didn't work. So, but the thing is you don't necessarily need to, you know, toss the baby out with the bathwater. If you have Ryan Reynolds there in the role, you just rein him in and try to get him to play it straight. I'm pretty sure as an actor he can do that. That's not his strength. You know, he's more of a jokey guy. He's more like you want to see like a Chris Pratt type character, but it's not necessary to like just recast. And that film scarred DC for life. That scarred them so bad they don't ever want to really do another full cosmic Green Lantern show or movie again. But what I can see with this is like going to be a CW level Green Lantern. It's going to be Earthbound. We're not going to go to Oa. We may have some kind of image or reference to something cosmic, one of those circle in the sky things. Um, they're probably not going to wear costumes. I think if they do, it's only going to be if they're traveling in space. I don't think you're going to see them on land solving a problem in the full costume. If they do, I will be very surprised. And they are going to use their rings sparingly because special effects budget, it's not going to be grand scale for a TV show. Even a more, expensive TV show, let's say that this is supposed to be. I mean, this is a streaming show. This is not exactly network television, not CW budget, but it's probably not going to be. All right, so let me know what you think about Lanterns. Do you think this is going to be good? I really wish it was. I don't know. I don't want it to be bad. It's like I said, like with Arrow. I think if enough people watch it, they'll probably get brave in subsequent seasons and try to lift the material and make it closer to the comics. But we're going to have to sit through a bad season before we even get to the next level. And the next level might not even be cosmic. It might not even be Sinestro Wars or whatever, but it's certainly not going to be in this season. All right, so our last subject of the day. Now, I have been staying away from this subject like the plague, like Dark Plagueis. I've stayed away from this subject a long time. But apparently, there is going to be a new Masters of the Universe movie. Oh, Masters of the Universe was my favorite, possibly barring Star Wars, my favorite cartoon franchise, whatever, when I was a kid. I love the cartoon. I love the toys. The movie was very good. The original movie from 1987. Like most people, had some issues with it because it wasn't particularly close to the, Prince Adam and Battle Cat and Orko. They didn't really have those characters, but it was a decent representation for the 80s, which, you weren't getting a big budget movie that had the kind of special effects they can do today. So for its time, it was really good and had a great cast. I mean, you had I always say Frank Langella. Talk about top 10 favorite villains. Frank Langella really brought it in that role, and I think he's always going to be remembered for that. Dolph Lundgren, of course, he did good. A young Courtney Cox. Great, pretty great cast there, all things considered. And so we move forward now. how many years has it been? Like almost like 40 years almost. And we're finally doing the He-Man movie. I guess this is going up the movies. At first I thought it was a streaming movie. I thought this was supposed to be on Netflix, but I think they've upgraded it to a feature release. And this is the first image they've released of the He-Man sword and He-Man. We don't really get a good look at He-Man. The gauntlet and the belt and stuff he's wearing kind of reminds me of the Dolph Lundgren version. What's kind of like science meets sorcery. That's what He-Man always was. It's sort of like, you've got the barbarian aesthetic, but then again, you still got guys with, laser pistols and hovercrafts and, you know, it's a very, unique, perhaps to me anyway. It's a unique looking property. You don't see anything like this anymore with the fantasy thing because people either will just stick with fantasy and the barbarian aesthetic, or they'll do the sci-fi. You don't really get the blending of both, or at least not done very well. And the sword there, particularly the sword of power, looks perfect. That looks exactly like the original toy and cartoon design. We've got a couple of images here. This is the image of the actor for He-Man and the actress for Teela. As you can see, she dyed her hair red, so there's really no panic about that. I know that the cast is not exactly looking like their comic counterparts, but I thought that was an important step that they at least tried to make that distinction that she is still a redhead, so that's good. All right, this is the cast. We'll go over this list. I haven't gone over it. I might have talked about it in the past, but all right, Nicholas Galitzine. I think that's his pronunciation. Excuse me if it's not. As He-Man, this is the way he looks. He doesn't look too bad. We'll get to the situation that picture is from in a moment, but for all intents, he kind of looks the part. That's okay. Camila Mendez as Teela. Again, I heard that she was cast, and she's a beautiful girl. I mean, that's fine, but she wasn't a redhead. I was kind of, what are they gonna do? But with the hair job that she's got the hair dyed red. I think she's gonna look good. She's got the like pronounced eyebrows of Teela. That was one of the things that they always had in those designs for the girls in He-Man was the pronounced eyebrows. They're like perfect eyebrows, and I think she's got perfect eyebrows for the role. The rest of her ain't bad as well. Hopefully, we'll see the official Teela costume. I want them all to wear the right costumes. That's what bothered me a lot in the original Masters of the Universe. Is they gave Teela this like light blue leotard, and I was like, really for Teela? I mean, at least keep the color scheme right, like white and gold. If they're not going to like do the armor, the breastplate, and the booty shorts or whatever, which hopefully they will stick to here. I mean, it really didn't look like her costuming at all. Jared Leto as Skeletor. Now this guy is the craziest mofo you ever seen. Jared Leto wants to do the craziest things. He wants to do all this crazy stuff. He wants to do Skeletor. I say let him do it. Just give it to him. He probably will outdo Frank Langella. I don't know how, because Frank Langella did a master class in Skeletor. But if Leto lets his like real weirdness out, we might have a really demented Skeletor. So I say I'm happy with that. You know Skeletor should be frightening. Now you got to be careful because, of course, it's a kids show, and you don't want him to. But Frank Langella walked that line really well. I mean, you've seen in his Skeletor the eyes, Frank Langella, and his eyes were terrifying. And I don't know if they're going to go with the eyes for the Skeletor, or they're just going to try to make him look like an actual skull. But I think he could probably terrify us, Leto. I think it's quite possible. Alison Brie as Evil Lynn. I wouldn't have thought of Alison Brie as Evil Lynn, but again, she's a beautiful woman, and Evil Lynn was played so well by Meg Foster, I believe was her name, with the eyes. She just had those eyes. And as a kid, you never thought Evil Lynn was like sexy or anything, but then Meg Foster, and she had the eyes and the suit and everything. So I guess I can kind of see Allison Brie playing it the way that Meg Foster did. And that again, if they can kind of harken back to what they did and what worked in the Masters of the Universe movie, it will work wonderfully here. And there's no reason to believe that it won't. I mean, I'm kind of guarded in my kind of interpretation of what they're going to do here, but it should work on paper. Idris Elba as Man at Arms. Now, again, this is where I'm going to have to grouse a little bit about this because Man at Arms is obviously white in the comics. Idris Elba is, of course, not white. Race changing. It gives me headaches. Of course, on the plus side, Idris Elba is a good actor. I mean, if we're going to have an actor that's race changed, Idris Elba is going to be probably as good a choice as any for this role. I think he'll be fine. Um, it brings into question, Tila is his adopted daughter, so they're going to get away with that. But it brings something away from the original concept if she's going to be a different race. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to try to connect that because I think the original cartoon was very vague about it. They were like, well, she was adopted, and then they did the 2002 version, I think, where Man at Arms was her uncle and he adopted her. And I don't know if that's where they're going with this. Johannes Johansson is playing Fisto. We're going to jump down to him. Now, Fisto was revealed in the 2002 cartoon, spoilers, to be Tila's actual father and the brother of Man at Arms. Now, again, I liked that there was some mystery in the original one, where we don't really know who Tila's father was. I think he was just described as some kind of soldier, and the idea was that maybe he passed on. I don't remember that episode right now, but uh, I think it would have been better if they just left Man at Arms white, and then you draw your own conclusions on whether he was her actual father. Because I remember as a kid thinking that it was kind of a ruse, that really she was the actual daughter of Man at Arms, but that Man at Arms was like sort of sworn to secrecy because he couldn't be with the sorceress. And of course, the sorceress is her mother. And he kind of had to play the part of, oh no, we're not together, me and the sorceress. No, we never been together. But he was still honestly Tila's father, and he couldn't say he was honestly Tila's father because he couldn't tell her or anyone else that she was the daughter of the sorceress and that her destiny was. That's my head canon anyway, and I kind of feel like you're taking that away from me now with the Idris Elba casting. So again, I mean, I'm not happy with it for many reasons, but I think it's more of a headcanon issue with me, probably. Monica Baccarin as the sorceress. This is another one. Now, I think this casting is pretty good. Um, I think she'll look good if they give her the costume. I really want her to have the costume because I know in the original Masters of the Universe film, the actress playing the sorceress probably wasn't much older than Monica Baccarin. Was Monica Baccarin? She's got to be like 50, right? And that's why she's probably the right age to be the sorceress because she's old enough to have had Tila. But I like the fact that she's like playing a little bit younger, the sorceress, because the sorceress in the other movie kind of looked like the wise woman, the wise old woman. I don't want to say old because she probably wasn't that old, but I mean, I could see Monica Baccarin in the sorceress costume. And again, I wanted that when I was a kid, the sexy sorceress costume. Why couldn't we get that then? I don't know. Now we probably will get it, but hopefully it looks like the original sorcerer's costume because one of the things I absolutely hated about the 2002 Masters cartoon sorceress was the Egyptian type costume. I thought that was horrible. And the idea of the sorceress turning into the Falcon, Zor, that's why she dresses like that because that's part of her transformation and stuff. So I mean, there's no real reason to take that away from her, the feathers and this and that, and it would look great on screen, I think. Kojo as Triclops. Again, another race change character, but in this case, I mean, that's what I mean. If you're going to race change a character that's a henchman, a flunky, I mean, all right, I'm not going to get up in arms over something like that, but again, race change character. Sam C. Wilson as Trapjaw. I'm hoping that this character is going to be mostly CGI'd because I want the green skin. I want the jaw to like flip around like that. I want the arm to do all kinds of crazy things. I don't know this actor, but I guess, he looks fine. Hapur Bohansen as Goatman. I have no idea who this character is. I don't know who this actor is. I don't know how that's going to play. I guess it was in some version of He-Man, the comics, perhaps. I don't know. I never heard of this guy in my life. I think, is it possible maybe that was a background character from the Masters movie of '87? I don't know. But again, casting seems pretty good. I don't really know what to say here. The only concern I have, and this is the last image I have, is this is the behind the scenes shots that we got, and I'm afraid that this is going to be a little too jokey. Now, again, I am not one of those types, and everybody knows this, that I don't want these things to be super serious. I don't want them to be grim. I don't want them to be dark. But when you have, I guess apparently this is Prince Adam. He's like in his Prince Adam disguise. When you have him like in a pink shirt, getting arrested, being put in a squad car, that's not really what you want to lead with your Masters of the Universe franchise. Um, you want to go funny at some point in the film, great. Maybe they didn't elect to have these photos released. I mean, these are leaks, I guess, but they should have tried to set the tone of what this film is going to be first. Now, everybody's thinking, is this going to be a broad comedy? Is this just going to be a joke? Is this going to be, from what I understand of the story, it's going to be mostly set on Earth. That's why I was not really keen on this from what I've heard about it. After all this time, they still can't get a film set entirely on Eternia. But again, I don't know. We just have to wait and see. We just have to be patient, I guess. I don't know when this film is set to release, but hopefully we see some, images and costume of some of these characters. Maybe we'll see a teaser trailer before too long. Let me know what you think. And that's about it for today. I will let you guys go now to partake of the rest of your evening. I will have to get some dinner myself. And as I said before, make sure you check out The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye. Casebook 13 will be out hopefully within a couple of months. I cannot make it any more definite than that, but I imagine by late spring, early summer. The next two books in the arc will be significantly shorter and less, difficult to produce. I think that should come out much quicker. We'll try to make up for some lost time. I feel badly because I've got so much stories to do, and it's taking me so long to do them. I'm going to be like 75 years old before I get to the end of season 2, let alone get into the middle of season 3. But we're beginning season 2 now on Bullets Bourbon, and you can check them out on Global Comics. I feel badly that I left it free for a while, but I really want people to take a chance on it. But it is behind the paywall again. And I do want to mention also that I finally looked up Indie Planet, and it looks like issue 12, Nursery Crimes, it is now up on Indie Planet. So you can order it there. You finally have a hard copy you can bring home and enjoy, put in your collection, put in your long box, and or sit it nicely upon the shelf. So check out the link in the description below, and you can find your copy of Bullets Bourbon there on Indie Planet. And so until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.